Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking at something I bet hits home for pretty much all of us.
hmm
Those times when a really small annoyance like, I don't know, losing the TV remote, slow internet, spilling your coffee, just triggers this massive reaction.
Yeah.
Way out of proportion, right?
Uh,
What's actually going on there? Why do these tiny things sometimes make us see red?
yeah, it's a really fascinating and honestly a very common human thing. These seemingly irrational bursts of anger, this micro rage, some people call it. It's not random at all. It actually tells us quite a bit about our underlying psychological state.
Exactly. And our mission today is kind of twofold. First, we want to unpack the deep psychological reasons why these little irritations can spark such big reactions. But just as important, we want to equip you, our listeners, with some really practical, down-to-earth tools you can use to manage and maybe even prevent these moments. Think of it like building your inner calm toolkit.
It's a great way to put it.
And guiding us through this is Dr. Snow, a psychologist who specializes in well-being and really understanding these inner workings. Welcome to the deep dive.
Thank you. It's great to be here. And yeah, as you said, these sudden flare-ups over tiny things might feel totally baffling, but they're often signals. Signals of deeper things going on.
Okay, Dr. Snow, let's dive right in. What are the core psychological reasons we sometimes just, blow up over stuff that doesn't really matter?
Well, one of the big ones is what we can think of as an overflowing stress container. Imagine your ability to handle daily stuff as like a bucket or container.
Okay.
Often that small trigger, say, the website loading slowly, it isn't really the root cause of the anger. It's more like the very last drop that makes an already full container spill over.
The last straw, basically.
Exactly. The last straw, all the bigger pressures, work, worries, money, stress, not sleeping well, relationship stuff, they've already filled the container right to the brim. That tiny thing just tips it over.
So it's less about the slow website itself and more about everything else we're carrying.
Precisely. The intensity of the reaction often reflects those bigger, sometimes unspoken burdens. The small thing is just the unfortunate catalyst.
That really shifts the perspective.
Hmm.
So how can we get better at noticing when our own stress container is getting dangerously full?
Well, a really simple starting point is just a quick, honest check-in. You could even do it right now. Just pause for a sec.
Okay.
Think about the last day or two. What pressures, big or small, have been on your plate? Maybe it was a chaotic morning commute, maybe a stressful email landed in your inbox, worries about family, or just, being tired.
Right.
Just mentally list them. You don't have to fix them right now. Just acknowledging, okay, yeah, I've actually got quite a lot going on. That awareness is the crucial first step. It helps you understand why, maybe, dropping your keys felt like the end of the world.
That makes sense. Just acknowledging the load. Okay, what's another key reason for these big reactions to small things?
Another really significant factor is our fundamental need for a sense of control, or maybe the feeling of control.
Control.
Yeah. In the grand scheme of things, we know we can't control everything, right? Big life events, other people.
Definitely not.
But we subconsciously develop expectations of control over the small, mundane things in our daily lives. We expect our keys to be where we left them, the coffee machine to work, the internet to be stable.
The basics.
Exactly. So when this minimal expected control is suddenly lost, the keys vanish, the Wi-Fi drops, it can trigger this surprisingly strong feeling of frustration, even helplessness. And that can easily spiral into anger. It feels like, ugh, if I can't even control this, what can I control?
I totally get that. It's like that one little thing going wrong makes everything feel out of whack. So how do we identify our specific control triggers?
Well, a useful exercise is to think about what small things tend to set you off the most. Are they usually things where you feel you should have control? Like, your belongings staying put, technology working like it's supposed to, your schedule going according to plan?
Yeah, I can see that. Like delays really get to me sometimes.
Right. So if an unexpected delay throws your whole day off and makes you furious, that might be a sign that disruptions to your perceived control over your time is a big trigger for you. Recognizing these personal patterns is really valuable.
Okay, that's really insightful. Control. What's the third piece of the puzzle here?
The third factor, and it's one we often underestimate, is the direct impact of our basic physical needs. Are we meeting them?
Like food and sleep.
Exactly. Being hungry, thirsty, really tired, or sleep deprived, all of these dramatically lower our tolerance threshold. Our ability to regulate emotions just tanks.
Right.
So when we're in that physically depleted state, even the tiniest frustration can feel like a major assault. A classic example is being hangry, irritable, simply because you need food. It perfectly illustrates how our body's state affects our mood.
Oh yeah, hangry is definitely real. We've all been there, haven't we?
Absolutely. It shows just how tightly our physical well-being and our emotional resilience are linked. When basic needs aren't met, our resources for coping just plummet.
So what's a practical way to check in with those basic needs when we feel that irritation bubbling up, that micro rage?
There's a really great simple tool for this called the HLT check-in. HLT is an acronym. It stands for hungry, angry, but maybe about something else, lonely,
Yeah.
tired.
Oh, HLT.
So, the next time you feel that surge of anger over something small, just take a quick pause and ask yourself these 4 questions. Am I actually hungry right now? Was I already feeling annoyed or upset about something totally different? Am I feeling a bit isolated or needing some connection? Or am I just plain exhausted? You might actually be surprised how often the answer is quite simple. And the solution is to grab a snack, drink some water, take a 5-minute break, maybe text a friend. It can often diffuse the whole situation pretty quickly.
Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. That's super easy to remember and really practical. Okay, what's the 4th major reason for these disproportionate reactions?
The 4th one is something psychologists call displaced anger. This ties into defense mechanisms.
Displaced anger. How does that work?
Well, sometimes we feel angry towards a specific person, maybe a boss, a family member, or we're frustrated by a situation. But we don't feel comfortable or able to express that anger directly to the source.
Right, that can be tricky.
So instead, a minor, unrelated annoyance, like someone cutting you off in traffic or finding a mistake in your lunch order, becomes a sort of safe target for all that pent-up emotion. We unconsciously redirect the anger from the original difficult source onto something or someone less threatening.
So my road rage might not actually be about the other driver.
It could very well be fueled by, say, leftover frustration from a tense meeting you had an hour before.
Yeah, wow. Okay, so how can we figure out if we're doing that, if we're displacing our anger?
This one takes a bit of honest reflection, usually after the initial heat of the moment has passed and you've calmed down a bit.
Makes sense.
Ask yourself, okay, right before I got so incredibly mad about the small thing, like the burned toast, was I already feeling upset or annoyed about something else entirely? Try to trace your feelings back. Was the intensity of my reaction really about the toast? Or was it maybe more related to that argument I had earlier? This kind of detective work can help you pinpoint the real source.
Like following the emotional breadcrumbs back. Okay,
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. The little thing just catches the overflow. And what's the 5th, the final big reason we react so strongly to these small things?
The 5th factor involves the violation of minor, often completely unconscious expectations we have about how the world should work.
Unconscious expectations, like what?
Well, think about it. We go through our day with tons of these unspoken assumptions. The elevator should come quickly, the Wi-Fi should be reliable, coffee shouldn't spill, traffic on my usual route should be predictable, people should queue nicely.
Yeah, okay. The invisible rule book.
Exactly. It's like this invisible rule book for daily life.
Yeah.
And when one of these minor, taken-for-granted expectations gets broken, the Wi-Fi is slow, there is unexpected traffic. It can feel like a fundamental rule has been violated, leading to a surprisingly sharp, negative reaction. It disrupts our sense of order.
It feels jarring, even if it's tiny.
Precisely. It can feel disproportionately disruptive because it messes with our subconscious map of how things are supposed to be.
So how do we get better at spotting these hidden expectations that might be setting us up for these micro rages?
The exercise here is when you catch yourself getting really worked up over something small, ask, what unspoken, maybe even slightly unreasonable expectation just got violated here? Did I secretly expect this gadget to never glitch? Did I assume I'd never misplace anything important? Did I expect my commute to always be smooth? Did I expect the kids to be perfectly quiet right now? Often just recognizing that the expectation itself might have been unrealistic can take some of the heat out of the anger.
Okay. Questioning the expectation itself. That's powerful. These 5 reasons, the stress container, control, basic needs, displaced anger, and hidden expectations, they really shed light on this. And the self-awareness exercises are great starting points. Now, let's shift gears into the really practical side. What can we actually do, both right in that moment when we feel the anger rising, and also maybe longer-term things to build resilience?
Yeah.
What are some concrete tools for that toolkit?
Absolutely. Let's get into the actionable strategies. These are tools you can use right when that frustration is bubbling up, and also things you can practice to just generally become less reactive over time.
Great. Let's start with the in-the-moment stuff. What's the first thing we can try?
The very first thing, and honestly, maybe the most powerful though, sometimes the hardest to do right then, is to consciously create a brief pause,
Right.
a space between the trigger event and your reaction.
Just stop.
Just stop. Before you lash out, before you slam something down, just take a moment, deliberately pause. You could even visualize a big red pause button in your mind and just mentally hit it. Okay. Or try a physical pause. Clench your fists really tight for a second, feel that tension, and then slowly, deliberately release them. Focus on that feeling of letting go. Even just 2 or 3 seconds of intentional pause can break that automatic anger circuit.
Interrupt the impulse. I like that.
Ah.
Okay, what's another technique for right in the moment?
Another really effective one is called box breathing. We mentioned how anger often makes breathing shallow and fast, which just amps up the agitation.
Right.
Conscious deep breathing does the opposite. It actually calms your nervous system down. Box breathing is super simple. Inhale slowly through your nose for a count of 4. Hold your breath gently for 4. Exhale slowly through your mouth for 4. And then hold the breath out for 4 before you inhale again.
In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4, like a box.
Exactly. Repeating that cycle just 3 or 4 times to make a huge difference. It creates mental space and dials down the intensity.
I can see how focusing on the counting and the breath would pull you out of the anger. Okay, what's next for the immediate toolkit?
The next one is what I call shrink it with the time lens. When we're hit with micro-rage, our mind tends to zoom way in on the tiny annoying thing, making it feel enormous and all-consuming.
Totally. It feels like the biggest deal ever.
Right, so you need to consciously zoom out, ask yourself this question. This thing that's making me so mad right now, the spilled juice, the annoying email, will it actually matter in 5 minutes? What about 5 hours, 5 days, 5 months, 5 years? For most of these little triggers, the honest answer is probably not, or definitely not.
Yeah, usually no.
Thinking about it in that bigger time frame helps you regain perspective and realize, okay, maybe this isn't worth getting so worked up about right now. It shrinks the problem back down to size.
That's a great mental trick, perspective shift.
Yeah.
Okay, another technique for when we're seeing red.
When anger grabs hold, our attention gets stuck on the negative thoughts and feelings inside. A really powerful way to break that grip is called sensory grounding. It's about forcing your attention back out into the real world using your 5 senses.
How does that work?
It's simple. Wherever you are, quickly name 5 things you can see right now. Then 4 things you can physically feel or touch. Then 3 distinct sounds you can hear. Then 2 different things you can smell. And finally, 1 thing you can taste. Even just the taste in your mouth.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. See, touch, hear, smell, taste.
Exactly. This deliberate process pulls you out of your head, out of that anger loop, and anchors you firmly back in the present moment in your physical surroundings.
That sounds really effective, like changing the channel in your brain.
Okay.
And the last immediate in-the-moment exercise.
The final one for right in the moment is to use a self-compassion statement. Often when we get angry, especially over something small, we then beat ourselves up about it.
Oh yeah, why am I like this? I shouldn't get so mad.
Exactly. And that self-criticism just adds fuel to the fire. It makes things worse. So instead, try practicing a little self-kindness. Have a short, simple, compassionate phrase ready. Something like, it's okay to feel frustrated, or I'm a good person having a tough moment, or just, I can handle this calmly.
Be nice to yourself about it.
Yeah. Repeat it gently to yourself, like a little mantra, when you feel that anger starting. It can be surprisingly soothing and counteract that harsh inner critic.
Okay, these 5 pause, box breathing, time lens, sensory grounding, and self-compassion. That's a really solid immediate response toolkit.
Moving beyond those heat-of-the-moment reactions, Dr. Snow, what about bigger picture strategies, things we can do more generally to build resilience against these micro-rages?
Yes, definitely. There are several really important complementary strategies that make a big difference in the long run.
Like what? Tell us more.
Okay, first, think about adding some short bursts of physical movement into your routine. Sometimes that initial spike of angry energy just needs to go somewhere physically.
Burn it off?
Kind of, yeah. It doesn't have to be a massive workout. Even just a few minutes of stretching, doing some jumping jacks, punching a pillow if you need to, or just taking a brisk walk around the block can help dissipate that initial tension. Release the pressure valve.
That makes sense. Use the body to calm the mind. Okay, what's another longer-term approach? Second, become a better detective of your own patterns and triggers. Pay attention over time. Are there certain times of day when you're more prone to snapping, maybe mornings when you're rushed, or evenings when you're tired? Are there specific situations like being stuck in traffic, dealing with tech issues, or certain physical states, hunger, lack of sleep. Recognizing your specific vulnerabilities allows you to anticipate them. You can then either prepare better for those moments or, if possible, maybe even avoid those triggers sometimes.
So self-awareness again,
Yeah.
looking through those recurring themes.
Precisely. Third, and this loops back to our very first point, always remember that stress container.
Right, the overflowing bucket.
Micro rages are often just a symptom that your overall stress level is too high. So prioritizing long-term, consistent stress reduction habits is absolutely key. This means things like making quality sleep a non-negotiable, finding mindfulness or meditation practices that work for you, making time for hobbies you enjoy, and really nurturing your social connections. These build your underlying resilience so the small stuff doesn't knock you over as easily.
So managing the big stresses helps with the small ones. Makes total sense.
It really does. Fourth, take a look at whether some of these recurring minor annoyances are consistently tied to interactions with specific people.
Ah, interesting.
If you notice a pattern like you always get frustrated after talking to a certain person, or when someone consistently does a particular small thing, it might be worth considering a calm, respectful conversation with them at an appropriate time. Setting some clear, healthy boundaries might proactively eliminate that trigger.
That's a really crucial point. Sometimes the micro rage is actually a signal that a boundary is needed. Okay, and then the final long-term strategy.
Finally, and this might be the deepest shift, work on cultivating greater acceptance of imperfection in yourself and in the world.
Acceptance of imperfection. That sounds challenging.
It can be, but the reality is neither we nor the world is perfect. Things will go wrong sometimes. Keys get lost, tech glitches, plans get disrupted, people make mistakes. That's just life. The more we can dial down our own perfectionism and accept that flaws and bumps in the road are inevitable, the less power those minor annoyances will have over us. We won't get triggered as often or as intensely.
Letting go of the need for everything to be perfect, that's huge. Wow, these are all incredibly valuable insights and really practical tools, Dr. Snow.
Yeah.
If you had to boil it down to one main message for our listeners from this whole deep dive, what would it be?
I think the biggest takeaway is to try and reframe how you see these little bursts of anger. Instead of just seeing them as annoying flaws or problems, try seeing them as signals. As teachers even.
Signals are teachers.
Yeah, they're giving you valuable information maybe about your stress levels, maybe you're hungry or tired, maybe you need better boundaries, or maybe you're holding on to some unrealistic expectations. So instead of just reacting with more frustration, get curious. Ask, okay, what is this feeling actually trying to tell me right now?
Get curious instead of furious.
Exactly. And never underestimate the power of that first simple step, the pause, and the first deep breath. Those are your immediate anchors. Practice them. Even if it feels awkward at first, practice makes them easier to access when you really need them.
Tiny angers as teachers. I really like that framing, Dr. Snow. It completely changes the perspective. Thank you so much for sharing all your expertise and these incredibly helpful exercises with us today. I genuinely think our listeners are going to find these tools invaluable for finding a bit more calm in their daily lives.
It was my pleasure. Glad to be here.
And thank you, our listeners, for joining us for this deep dive. I really encourage you, maybe this week, pick just one or two of the exercises we talked about and consciously try them out. Maybe it's practicing box breathing during your commute. Maybe it's doing the HALT check-in when you feel that irritation start. Maybe it's asking the time lens question when a small problem feels huge. See which ones resonate. See what starts to shift. That's all for this edition of The Deep Dive. Until next time, take good care.